welcome to the Comics Fu Show.
I'm your co-host, Patrick Lugo, and with me is co-host Curtis Fujita.
As a kid, I loved Kung Fu movies, so I went to Chinatown, trained with a wise teacher, and became a Kung Fu master. Sounds simple, right? Not really. My journey, like the study of Kung Fu, was as arduous as it was rewarding, filled with as many secrets as revelations and as much heartache as triumph. It's a defining moment in my life, and while I began studying Kung Fu to learn how to fight, what I discovered was a way to live. Martial arts never came easy to me. I was far from talented, and even farther from being the chosen one. It was only through years of tenacious perseverance that I was able to make steady progress. And so, I was surprised when my master told me that I should teach Kung Fu and share the art outside of Chinatown. I did just that and taught Kung Fu to my own students for 20 years. I always wanted to do more to share the art of Kung Fu with others, but was limited by only being able to teach those within my immediate area. What about the rest of the world? Then one day, I had one of the deepest insights about Kung Fu. I realized that the punches, kicks, throws, and myriad of martial maneuvers are merely the delivery system for the true essence of Kung Fu, the philosophy and way of life. Having worked for years as a professional artist and storyteller in film, animation, video games, and comic books, I realized that I could draw upon this unique skill set to share my passion for Kung Fu with the greater world. And so I created Shadow Ghost, a Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master. The first issue is created entirely by myself, from story and art to colors and lettering. Every panel is filled with unprecedented accuracy in its depiction of Kung Fu by a comic book creator who knows from first-hand experience what it means to be a Kung Fu master. Shadow Ghost is a martial arts coming-of-age story about a young man whose search for the truth about a legendary hero leads him to study Kung Fu, and through a twist of fate, becomes part of the legend himself. For the first time in comic book history, you can immerse yourself further in each issue with Kung Fu skills technology, powered by Tiger Crane Kung Fu. Scan the QR code at the back of the comic and follow an exclusive link to an online instructional video where I teach you Kung Fu techniques featured in the series. With Kung Fu skills technology, you can do more than just read about the Shadow Ghost saga. You can become a part of it. The first issue is completely finished and ready for print. All that's needed is for you to make a pledge of support so that we can fund the printing of the first issue. Together, we can share the wisdom of Kung Fu with the greater world. Shadow Ghost is the story of Kung Fu. It's about the people, the art, the culture, and the philosophy. It's my story and the story of those that I've learned from, taught, fought, and loved. Join me and become part of the vibrant legacy in a place and time where we might not be the chosen one, but where we can make a choice to be part of something bigger and greater than just ourselves. I'm Sifu Curtis Fujita, and this is Shadow Ghost, the Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master.
Hi, I'm Plugo, author, illustrator, comic creator, and the art director for Kung Fu Magazine for more than 20 years. But I'm here to talk to you about a project that's really special to me. It's the middle grade graphic novel, A Tiger's Tale. Imagine the story of tigers and dragons and martial artists and monsters. So when I launched the campaign for A Tiger's Tale Volume 1, I did not know what to expect. But it succeeded thanks to a group of passionate backers. It was also awarded the Make More Comics art grant that year. and was later featured as part of an art gallery exhibit. And that's why I'm coming to Kickstarter, to cover production fees, printing, copy editing, things like that. Books completed, with the exception of a few pages I've set aside for color over the course of the campaign. This turned out to be a popular feature of Volume 1's campaign, so I thought I'd bring it back for Volume 2. I think it's going to be great fun for everyone. Hope you'll support the campaign. I'm very excited about it. Thanks for stopping by.
All right. Welcome to the Comics Fu Show.
Well, we stand at the crossroads of comics, kung fu, and pop culture of all sorts. I have with me right here my co-host, Curtis Fujita. And
I'm Curtis Fujita, Kung Fu instructor, comic book creator. My current comic book Kickstarter campaign is called Shadow Ghost. It's the Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master. And I'm going to hand the baton back to my co-host over here, Patrick Lugo. Go ahead, Patrick.
You can also find me online at Plugo or Plugo Arts. My current campaign is for A Tiger's Tale Volume 2, which is currently funded on Kickstarter, but we have about 14 days to go to reach our real goal of 100 backers. We're getting there.
Very close, very close. And Patrick, also we want to make sure that it's for Tiger's Tale 1 and 2. So if you've missed the first one, you can definitely get that in this campaign and get caught up, right?
That's exactly correct. There's a bunch of new readers joining this campaign for the first time, so that's been very exciting to get to know them for the to get that introduction.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna get to go deep into Kung Fu. Real quick before we get off topic, just somebody said something in the chat, so I figured let's take care of this before we bring our guest on. Eric Quinn says, your teachers are good people. I got to meet them and train a little bit with Sifu Raymond Wong. He's referring to me. So my two teachers are YC Wong and Grandmaster Raymond K. Wong. Not related, but two great teachers, definitely. I'm so lucky to know both of them. So thanks, Eric.
Legendary status, each one.
Yeah.
Their reputations precede them always. So
definitely. Speaking of Kung Fu and reputation and lineage,
people whose reputations precede them,
yes,
right? Particularly online, as our guest, like yourself, teaches Kung Fu online, and he's joining us thanks to the power of the internet from Geneva, Switzerland, which I think is awesome.
Definitely.
Sifu Brian Kuttel is here.
Awesome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's nice to talk to you guys. It's been a while since I've talked to Patrick, and it was before he released, or way back before A Tiger's Tale Volume 1 came out. And then it's nice to talk to you, Curtis, for the first time.
Definitely. We just was briefly mentioning before show. I feel like Sifu Kuttel and myself were just kind of like barely missing each other. Writing for Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine, posting stuff online, doing tons of stuff. So it's nice to finally meet you, virtually in person. So
yeah, I mean, we had the same stomping grounds. I mean, you were training in San Francisco for a while, and same here. I was over in the Sunset District instead of Chinatown, and, over with Doc-Fai Wong. So all these opportunities and just near misses every time.
Exactly. That's. Do you mind me asking? Are you originally from Geneva, or is that where you are now, or how?
No, that's this. So, I'm originally from the United States, from a small town called Truckee, California, up near Lake Tahoe, and I was training martial arts in Reno, Nevada, since it was closer to Truckee. And it had just happened to be the same lineage as Grandmaster Doc-Fai Wong in San Francisco. And at a certain point, I decided I wanted to move out to San Francisco and train with him and his son, Sifu Jason Wong. And that's why I ended up in SF, and I was there for pretty much 10 years. So, yeah.
That's excellent. Excellent.
But yeah, now I'm here in Geneva, Switzerland, and it's kind of crazy because my family is, my family lineage is Swiss, but I never grew up here, never lived here, just visited a couple of times. And it just happened to be by chance that I ended up going to my country of origin, I guess.
Oh, that's great. That's great. When you hear these names for people watching that aren't familiar, Doc-Fai Wong, my teacher, Tai Sifu Wong, like there's our Kung Fu community, or how should I say this? The traditional Kung Fu community is very, very small at a certain level. So when you say to us, these names are just like saying, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, or something like that. Like we know who these people are, but these are very esteemed masters. And when you say, Brian, it's kind of funny. It's like the shorthand for how good is your Kung Fu, or what is so who did you train with? And if they go,
Exactly.
it's this guy who I met in a parking lot, you wouldn't know him. Like, okay, well, I don't know. But if they say Doc-Fai Wong, you go, oh, Doc-Fai Wong, let me pay attention, right? We kind of, there's a barometer, right?
It's true. Especially within, for sure a lot in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, there's such a strong Kung Fu community. And I mean, going outside of that too, there's a lot of big names that you get along, Northern and Southern California, up north into the Pacific Northwest, and then on the East Coast as well. So it's nice to, it's always cool to hear that too, that somebody's trained with this guy over here or that guy over there. And,
oh yeah.
It validates their training.
It does. It's like, oh, it's a little place that I studied with. It's called Juilliard. You may have heard of it,
Yeah.
Speaking of Patrick is the one that's like at the center. I mean, my gosh, Patrick's job at Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine. I mean, him and Gene know everybody. I mean, you guys, right? I mean, you were at that flashpoint of just everything going on all at once. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see how over that time, like what names filtered through and how long it took for them to finally make their way down to the studio, or like who shows up like really hungry. They just got off the plane and they're like, I'm gonna make a name for myself. And then the people who have just been there and they're like, okay, finally it's time to mosey on down to the Bay Area. Let's do something. Or the people who have just been institutions and they're like, life in the Bay Area is so busy that they're just, even that little drive down to the studio might take years, but then when it's the right time or the right moment, I mean, that's part of why Kung Fu Magazine wanted to do a lot of these, was so events oriented, the tournaments and the various like celebratory events, because that was like, such an effective way to get everyone to start coming together. And then we could kind of just stagger like, oh, well, if you're going to come into town, come in a day early, and then we'll do some photo shoots and stuff so that we could, and then someone would hear that so-and-so was coming into town a day early. So they'll come into a town, 2 days early. And then it would become this whole like, bubbling cauldron of different martial artists. And, there's the local students or the students that have come, taken the 6-hour drive. Oh, I drove up from LA to meet my master at this photo shoot. It'd be all of these little convergences just happening.
Oh yeah, and I don't know about Sifu Kuttel conscious, but for me, when I had my first thing published in Kung Fu Tai Chi, it was like a badge of honor. It was like, oh, I'm there. I made it. I feel seen, right?
100%. Yeah, I mean, I still have all the copies of the magazines that I had when I had an article published. I still keep those. I mean, they're right on hand, and it's funny, like you also kind of look at who are the other masters that are in the magazine with you, and you're like, oh, I'm with this guy. Oh, I'm with this guy. Like you get so excited about that.
Oh yeah.
And I know for me too, personally, every time, between the submission to the print of the article, there's still an amount of time in between. And it was always kind of exciting and, this kind of a little bit of a lull in between. But once that article came out, it was this, just this drive again to like, oh, I want to write another one and I want to get that going again. It was, it was really like the magazine itself had a huge impact, on me, not only just reading, but, writing and trying to grow my martial arts as well.
Absolutely. Now, for those that don't know, your style is Choy Lei Fat, and when we say Kung Fu, because we get Kung Fu people, we get Kung Fu people, but people think Kung Fu maybe just one thing. It's all Kung Fu. There's the Japanese Kung Fu called karate, and there's the Korean Kung Fu called Taekwondo, but no, Kung Fu is inherently a Chinese martial art, and there's hundreds of different styles within it. Maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about your journey, because you don't just, usually, at least from my experience, if you do Kung Fu, especially traditional Kung Fu, you don't just stumble onto it. It's not like, oh, I just happened to study, this particular style. What's your journey like in martial arts, and how did you come to study with Grandmaster Doc-Fai Wong?
Well, in a sense, it was kind of, it wasn't really a stumble into it, but it was definitely, there were not many different styles where I was growing up and where I lived. There were a lot of Japanese or Korean styles, and I watched some Bruce Lee movies, and I had to learn Kung Fu. And then I also I was working at a video store in my teens, so I started renting all the videos I could and got into Jackie Chan and Jet Li and all of those ones. And like Kung Fu won me over. And if I was going to learn a martial art, it had to be Kung Fu. And so luckily I had a friend that at the time he was kind of the martial artist in the group of my friends. And he suggested that I check out this Kung Fu school in Reno. It was called Tiger Kung Fu at the time. It has now since changed names. I believe it's Zai XMA or Zai Martial Arts. But I didn't know what style they taught. I called, did my introductory lesson, learned, a basic block, a basic kick, a forward roll, and then I was hooked at that point. And it wasn't until maybe the first 3 or 4 months that I started to actually learn that the style of Kung Fu was Choy Lei Fat, and it had, we had a grandmaster of the system, and he was in San Francisco, and he would come and teach seminars, or we would go and do seminars at his school, and we would do tournaments and things and have all sorts of interactions with him. And it was just, over the years, I got hooked and just kept getting literature. I would get all sorts of different Kung Fu books, Kung Fu videos. I wanted to learn everything about all styles of Kung Fu, and started even picking up other martial arts books just to see concepts and principles and stuff like that. And it was just that more or less obsession that really pushed me to pursue the martial arts so strongly. And eventually that led to me being very, I don't know, I want to say stubborn, or, I fell in love with the style, and I didn't want to branch out or try anything else. There was so much that I knew I had to learn ahead of me that I didn't want to try anything else. And when I had the opportunity to go and train and work at Grandmaster School in San Francisco, I took it and never looked back.
That's great. And I think it's very interesting and great to hear you say, instead of delving outside, you went further in to look at an art. I think that's something that not a lot of people understand is, nowadays, and everybody has their path, right? But with MMA and these kind of hybrid martial arts ideas is, okay, the common thing is, okay, well, I don't want to focus on one thing. That's the old kind of stodgy way of doing it. I want to branch out and know everything. But what you realize is that there's only so much time. There's only so much time in your lifetime to get something. And this idea of traditional martial arts being antiquated, I have to bow to this person and call him my Sifu and swear allegiance and that kind of thing. A lot of people don't like that, but what they don't understand is it's a method, right? And when you delve into going to a deep relationship with a mentor, you're giving yourself to them, and you have the ability to get the full transmission of their knowledge, as opposed to 5 months here, 5 months there, 5 months here. It's the depth of the understanding. And it sounds like me, you've been blessed to come across an instructor or a Sifu that you can actually devote yourself to, because there's that much that you need to gain from them, right? I mean, it's an experience that I don't think modern martial artists always grasp, right?
Yeah, and coming from the instructor side too, like I mean, I'm sure you've seen it as well. You get those students that come in and they take a year's worth of lessons, and they think, you know what? I think I'm going to move on to another martial art. I think I got enough out of this. And you're like, no, you've barely scratched the surface. Like, you barely know how to do this. You don't know how to actually use it. You don't know how to make it better and stronger and all of these things. And, you know, that people get impatient and they think that the variety, having just the quantity, is going to make up for the quality. And I mean, I'm not saying that people shouldn't try different martial arts, but I think you have to understand that there's more of an investment than just a few months or even just a single year in it.
Definitely that idea of investing in delayed gratification, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had people, you know, you probably had this as an instructor and, you know, the bane of our existence. I can't tell you how many times people have come in and said to me, okay, well, so when can I be a Sifu? Like with 1, 2, 3 years? What's it take? You know, or how fast? I want you to articulate how fast I'm going to get through everything, right? And the realization over time is you kind of do the Tai Chi, you know, reversing them. I'll just say, I don't know. You tell me. You tell me what's your natural ability. You tell me how often you're going to come to class. You tell me how hard you're going to work at home. You're the one that should be telling me that. I have no idea about that, right? But you know, but it's that's not a good business plan. I know, but that's the truth, isn't it?
You know, I just had this conversation exactly earlier today, and it's, yeah, you can't put a timeline on any of that because it's completely up to the student.
Yeah.
And yeah, as well as how much time they're going to put into it, like you said, how much effort they're going to put into it. And really, that, like you said, the natural ability does so much too, because there's going to be some things that, you know, it's like flexibility for certain people. It takes a lot longer to get. Just the physical strength, you know, you bring in a group of 10 people, they're not going to have the same attributes. They're not exactly the same beginner. It's not a cookie cutter thing. So yeah, it's, I think we're seeing like in a college, oh, it only takes, you know, 2 years to get this degree, 4 years to get this degree. And they expect that same kind of timeline for martial arts too, but that's unrealistic.
It is, and it's you're robbing them of the actual truth, right? I mean, we could turn around and as a business proposition, I know what to say. I know I can do the hard sell and say, okay, give me 2 years of your life, you will be a master and yada yada. But that's not the truth, right? But as you've probably discovered in the world of traditional Chinese martial arts and modern society, people don't always want the truth, even if it's what's best for them.
Yeah. Sometimes they just want that, you know, like a Zen koan or something, you know, or just kind of some beautifully worded proverb that's going to make them ponder.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to get an AI on that, right?
GPT to.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they want.
So, but one thing, I mean, both of you are like in this precarious position and also pioneering, right? You're both bringing a traditional modality, right? A traditional pedagogy, I could use that word, I think, of Kung Fu, but then you're doing it online. You're like trying to build this structure, you know, in the wake of everyone's shelter in place, you know, scenario, and then just also trying to make that part of your living. So I want to ask that of both of you, like what it's like to kind of be at that like crossroads, at that like mostly uncharted territory.
I'd like Sifu Kuttel to go first because he's the guest, and I can feed off of his answer. So
yeah, exactly.
That's the true Kung Fu. You make the first move.
Well, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, especially since I started my online program, because it is kind of uncharted territory. You don't really know the best method of perpetuating things. You don't know the best method of conveying things to the student because you're limited to camera angles and exact specific ideas, which become a lot less in-depth and a lot less, a better way to say it is you can do a lot more in person. And you can do so many things, and the experience would be so much different if you're there with the student in person. They have something where you can give them instant feedback, you can make instant adjustments, and not ask them to look for the correction. And it's not always easy in that respect to figure out what level they should be at as far as compared to an in-person curriculum. Because in the beginning, I just looked at the basic curriculum that we had and my idea of opening an in-person school and, oh yeah, I'll have them required, you know, you got to learn this, 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 and this in the beginning, and then you're set, you can test and move on. And then when I tried to put it on a web page, it just became pages and pages of overwhelming videos and graphics and explanations that it almost seemed like something that would be, you know, like a, for lack of, you know, to make it more relatable for somebody to get like a white belt and move up to their next belt, you would have to split that up into like 3 different levels in an online program. And then I also had to really look at it from like a reverse engineering aspect and see what my expectations for the student should be at each level, because I have to allow certain mistakes and certain discrepancies based on not trying to overwhelm the student. And these are things you easily do in real time, in person, in a lesson with somebody. You can gauge what are the most important corrections for this person at this time and at this moment. You don't really have to think about it, but I have to almost plan ahead for what kind of mistakes I know the students will be making and which ones I can kind of let slide until we hit the next level. So these are some really interesting things. And again, trying to figure out what's the best way to convey the information, because it's not always just good explanations, you know, a good speech or a little extra text on the bottom or a different camera angle. It could be a number of things that help that student understand that from a distance, from a video, from an online school or program. So that's been at least my look into this. And I don't know if you feel the same way, Sifu, but you know, that's where I'm at.
No, definitely. And I agree. I mean, I think the thing is realizing that it's not the same thing. And then how do you embrace that? Right. That's the thing. Oftentimes people would say is like, oh, well, you know, it's not as good as in person. Well, it's like, absolutely not. It's something different. And so the way that I see it, and then I kind of fun to explain it, is kind of more along the lines of, all right, there's these other methods of instruction, right, which are books and, you know, videos and things like that. And so I'd say what we are is the evolution of that in terms of online instruction, you know. In fact, I recall, you know how supportive everybody of your own style is online, I'm sure. And I remember there was, I won't say, but there were some people, you know, because I teach home God, that were saying, oh, this isn't, you know, train in person. This is the real way to do that. And I want to tell them, like, you realize that Lam Sai Wing, one of our most famous practitioners, wrote books on how to do Kung Fu, right? Did you forget that? So I view it as it's a different thing. It's that evolution of that kind of method. And then just trying to convey it. You talked about camera angles. And I think that's an important thing is understanding the medium, you know. And that being said, I have to commend you, you know, for your use of camera angles on your videos and things like that. It's not always just one flat angle will do the job, you know. The other thing as far as business for me was just trying to figure out how to make it marketable in the sense that not everybody wants to take the live interactive classes, and also there's time zones, right? So what we do is we have like different tiers of membership. We have the live the live stream where you're interacting, and then we have the recorded sessions for people that are in other time zones and so forth and so on. But yeah, that would be kind of my my thoughts on it. What I kind of, to harken back to that idea of the camera angles, you know, I think the thing that Sifu Kuttel and I find ourselves with this age of social media and media in general, right? And, you know, when you look at our Sifus and them, you know, maybe they did instructional videos here and there or magazine articles, but it's a totally different game with totally different expectations now. And it's not enough just to know the skill. It's how you present yourself. Like I have to commend Sifu Kuttel because he's always presents himself well, you know. Appearance is one thing, right? You're not coming in here, you know, just all disheveled. You know, when I look at your videos, you're always, you know, dressed nicely. You have good camera angles, good editing, things to engage. That doesn't just happen, you know, overnight. I would be curious as an artist and a martial artist. I'd be curious to hear about how that influence came into play for you, because you're so good at it, and it's not that common. So please, I think it's fascinating stuff.
Well, actually, that was going to be when I was in high school. I got into, I got a video camera, and free time on the weekends, friends are going to start making, videos and all of this. And I mean, we were at a point where, like I said, I had a job at a video store, so I was renting all sorts of movies at the time, and also I was all hyped up, when The Matrix came out, and my friends and I would always try to figure out how we could do that. I mean, we had one where we tied one of us with a rope to a tree, like for the jumping crane kick, and then the other one just ran around them in a circle with the video camera. But when I was in high school, we had a vocational program, and there was a local access television station there, and I did one semester there, and I really liked it, so I continued, and even did a part-time job there as well, just to get, it was, if I didn't do martial arts, I definitely would have ended up in television production, or maybe even doing some kind of working on movie production as well, because I loved it. I loved getting into the studio, working with chroma key. I mean, we had all sorts of editing. We were doing either VCR to VCR. We had a system that took like an hour to render just simple titles. That was the Casablanca system. Wow. I remember when iMovie came out, and I was like, oh, this is so exciting. It's so simple. And we had Premiere and all sorts of other things that we were using, but I got a lot of experience in that. And I remember when YouTube started picking up in popularity, I was putting up dumb videos with my friends, and then I started seeing martial arts videos on there, and I thought they were, super cool to see just these little clips of different people doing different styles. And I always thought it would look so cool to have somebody do like a form that represents their system that's not just one static position, or from a tournament or a demonstration, but just to have like multiple angles and make it seem more cinematic. And that was something I always wanted to do. And in the beginning, I was more, I would say apprehensive, because I didn't think my skill was good enough to be the main lead on that. And I was also not, I was so nervous and anxious to ask anybody above me to be, in these videos. So I waited quite a while before I started filming. And at that point, I just thought it looked cool to do it. And I was like, well, if it works, it works. If not, don't blame the system, blame me. But yeah, that background just really happened to work out with it.
That's great. And it's a thing that, Patrick and I are trying to do with our mutual projects too. It's the idea of like, take your other passion to support your passion, and I think we just live in such a glorious time, not to date myself, but to date myself. It's like with social media, with the internet, with, digital media, all those kind of things, where it'd be great to get help from other people, but we don't need it. I mean, and that's tremendous. I mean, I feel like we can all be our own advocates, and we're so blessed in that way. Right? It's amazing time.
I mean, you can, if you don't know, I run into this all the time. Like I've been editing for, I don't know how many years, and yet I still run into issues, and I'll just hop on YouTube and look it up and see what people do. And I learn, I'll catch something in another video where they're talking about, oh yeah, you just use this. And it's like, oh my gosh, that saves me so much time on other projects. And
oh yeah,
I don't have to go into a school. I don't have to wait and talk to somebody. I could just do it instantly. And it's like you said, it's amazing that we have all of this at our fingertips. And
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And as a martial artist, right, I get on my students' cases all the time, right? Because it's like, you can watch every form that you ever did on your phone. You remember, if you ever, first of all, trying to ask your Sifu, can I get footage of you doing this form? Whew, talk about going against the Chinatown doctrine. And then you bring in the big VCR, video cassette recorder, and it's like this big thing, right? And now it's like, I get, I'm such an old man, I get angry at my students. You guys have no excuse. Like, I record all my classes. I said, you have a year's worth of classes right here. Like, just watch it. Give me a break, man. But no.
Well, I want to touch on another aspect of the DIY thing, right? Because Monkey Movement, right? Self-published.
Yeah.
Also illustrated?
Yeah, that's getting into that's where I'm definitely still the student for sure. This is where I have to pick from your guys' wisdom. It was, I mean, I've been writing articles for years. I had a good mentorship from Grandmaster Doc-Fai Wong, and then also when I got connected with Gene at Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine, I don't know how he felt about it, but to me, I felt like he kind of took me under his wing and kind of guided me to be a better writer. And I always, I've always looked up to him for that. And later on, I thought, maybe I could branch out and write something maybe a little bit more longer format. And I had bounced around a couple ideas. And when I first moved to Switzerland, I was helping out my family with their work actually across the country in the Lucerne area. So I was taking a train twice a week. I'd go out on Sunday night, and then I'd come back on Friday. And it was like a 4-hour train ride. So I had plenty of time to just sit there on my laptop and start writing and, gather a bunch of notes. And I thought, what would be kind of interesting is writing something about the monkey form. I had just revisited the form before I moved away from San Francisco, and it was bouncing around in my head, and I was thinking of all the benefits because originally I learned it at a seminar, and the seminars are always like you have like 3 hours to just memorize as much as you can and do as best you can to pick things up, but it's just so condensed that it's really hard to really understand and get the beautiful parts of the form or the training until you really take the time to work on it. And being, an instructor and, having one thing or another, I just kind of put that form on the back burner until a couple months before I left San Francisco. And in actually taking the time to work on it, I realized so many benefits of just in athletic and movement training. And when I was writing it, I thought, I'll just keep listing things and see how this goes. And then it kind of turned itself into a book. And I thought, let's try illustrating this too. Because I also I wanted to have that kind of classic Kung Fu manual look. And I'm definitely not on the art level that you guys are at. But I do I was always drawing when I was young. I was always sketching. So I thought, gosh, this would be a great chance to exercise that muscle again. And also see if I could get that Kung Fu manual vibe. And it was a lot of work. It was definitely an eye-opening experience because, in writing something, the process is pretty much straightforward. But in illustrating, it's such a time-consuming thing. You really have to figure out the best way to convey the information. Again, it's kind of like teaching online and on video. So this goes for everybody else out there. If you are considering hiring an illustrator, hire them and pay them what they're worth, because there's a lot you guys won't see behind the scenes. And yeah, I'm actually currently working on another book. I'm actually in the illustration phase right now. I'm putting myself through that torture again. And it's about Choy Li Fat kicking techniques. So now I'm the manuscript has been written. It's been done for a couple of months, but I've just been spending all my time focusing on drawing how to do the kick, the application, self-defense application, combat sports application, and it is just drawing after drawing after drawing. And for these ones, I started with just pencil and paper. And so I had gotten quite a bit done before I finally got, into the 21st century, and I got an iPad, and now I can draw digitally, but I don't want to mess with the style. So I'm still pushing myself to finish this one with pencil and paper and scanning and Photoshop and all of that. So that's where that's at.
No, that's great. And I kind of feel like you can't help but have the Kung Fu spirit, right? The Kung Fu spirit to kind of grit your teeth and bear this really rough time, right?
Eat bitter. I'm definitely eating bitter.
So studying Kung Fu isn't easy, right? And then that next level, being a Sifu, right? Now, it's an interesting term because I don't know. I've gone to tournaments where somebody will say, I'm a Sifu, and you go, well, tell me about your school or who you teach, and they always go, well, I don't teach anybody. I hate teaching people, and I always go, well, that's like saying like you're a dad without having a kid. That's like somebody like me saying like I am the best father. Like, well, tell me about your kids. Like, oh, well, I don't have any kids of my own, but please call me dad. But it's a sorry venting. That it's a road less traveled, right? Especially for traditional kung fu, with the kind of pedigree that you have. Can you explain what that was like for you? I mean, it's not just it's not like signing up for a course, a college course, and going on that fast track.
Yeah, well, for sure. So to be honest, I never expected to become a Sifu. I never in the school that I was in. We were very traditional in the sense of like you only have one Sifu in the school. And already we kind of broke that by having Grandmaster Doc-Fai Wong, and then his son was the Sifu of the school. And curriculum-wise, material-wise, I knew enough that I definitely met the requirements for if I would just go open up a school, I could become a Sifu at that point. But in our school, we just called that level Tai Sifu, and that was it. So you were just basic instructor was Sifu, and then senior instructor is Tai Sifu. And there was, I guess they decided to be a little bit more progressive in having more than one Sifu in a school, because there were instructors that had been around teaching as long as I've been alive and even longer than that in the school, and they were still Tai Sifu. So I remember, because I was working in the office with Grandmaster and with my Sifu, and we printed up the certificates. I had to help write them out. I helped them do the stamps and get everything ready for that night that we were going to have these guys become Sifu, and kind of a little bit of a surprise for these guys. And sure enough, they snuck behind my back and printed up an extra certificate for me as well. And like I said, it was totally unexpected. That it was on our annual banquet night, so we had different associate schools that were in as well. And I was just standing back, running the soundboard, making sure, because we played, music while they had people come up, and they were going to do they were also doing the Baisi, the discipleship ceremony. And, I was just hanging out back there, and then they were calling my name, and I thought, oh no, I messed up with the sound. And they went, no, Brian, come here. It's not like I had to run over. And basically I went through the whole discipleship ceremony. I was presented with my Sifu certificate, and it was kind of all on the spot there. And I, like I said, I didn't expect it. So I felt at the time that I wasn't ready. It was like, it's very similar to, like a black belt, when people get their black belt level and they say, like, it's weird. You expect that you're going to be somebody different. You're going to have superpowers all of a sudden, the day that you get it, all of a sudden, you're going to be excellent. And there's no difference. It's still you. And it was the same thing. I thought, man, I should be somebody more. What is a Sifu? And I went through a whole phase, like half a year, where I was always contemplating everything I did. I had to rethink it. I was teaching class. Wait, is this how a Sifu would teach? Wait, is this how a Sifu would answer this question? And all sorts of things. It was this whole, I don't know, I had to take a step back and really look at myself and think, not only, I knew the material just fine, but what did this title represent? Because it's something, that it wasn't I didn't call myself Sifu. And I know this is something I get a lot of flack from all the time, because people that find me on YouTube, their first introduction to me is, oh, Sifu Kuttel. Oh, this guy calls himself Sifu. Oh, it's just this, who is this white guy? Like, that's always how it starts. Like, hey, look, I didn't even start it. My system gave me that title. Like, I go with what he says. So, take it up with him.
No, totally.
Yeah.
And for people watching, just, because sometimes we can do people that don't know the culture. So again, In Chinese martial arts, Sifu or in Cantonese Sifu is the teacher or the instructor or master, right? Sensei in Japanese. So and then when he refers to Sihing or Dai Sihing, what he's talking about is Kung Fu is based on a family structure because it doesn't have the same military roots as like Korean or Japanese martial arts. So the Sifu is the patriarch, is the head of the family, and then everybody beneath him is family members. So your senior Kung Fu brother would be your Sihing because they started in the school before you. And that has nothing to do with age. You could have a 5-year-old kid that started an hour before you, and you would have to call that 5-year-old kid Sihing because that's your big brother, because he came into that world before you, right? So that's very important. And the Bai Si, the ceremony, is how you become part of the Kung Fu family and the lineage, how you're going to be somebody to transmit that information going forwards. This is one of the challenges for us as Chinese martial artists is you have to learn the culture to really get the art, you know? And if you enjoy the culture, it's not a problem. But for other people, especially a lot of modern people, we'll just put it that way, they don't want to deal with that, right? You know, it's too elaborate. You have to be a very passionate person to enjoy that aspect, you know?
And I don't know if it's how it went for you, but for me, a lot of it was learning on the spot. So there would be times where, you know, we would go take, I would be the driver for Grandmaster, and he would have, you know, a master from a different style, you know, and we'd drive over and get some dim sum or something. And then all of a sudden I have to pick up on all these little formalities that I should have known. It was like, oh my God, I need to make sure I do this. I pour the tea. I make sure that I put a little bit of food on the plate and in which order, because it's very respectful, and always keep an eye on this and that. And all of these things for me were, well, not all of them, but a lot of them were not explained. And all of a sudden you just kind of had to pick it up on the spot.
Oh, definitely. And you know, again, back to the training, I mean, part of it's that old Confucian culture, right? But a part of it is, in hindsight, is the training, right? So I'm embarrassed to have to call this 5-year-old my big brother, you know, but it makes you humble. It puts you in a different mindset. You're able to separate that the Curtis who was outside of the classroom is a different person in this class environment. And having to pour the tea and acknowledge who's more senior, because what you do is, for those that don't know, the junior person, the person who's the newest to the school, which is the baby of the family, you have to watch like a hawk, and you're looking at all the teacups, and you can't let anybody that's above you's teacup empty, especially the Sifu. So you always have to keep an idea of the hierarchy, and okay, Sifu's cup, then the first student, then the second student, and you're just constantly running this, you know, it's full of pressure, right? But these things are training, and it trains you to be a humble person. You're an aware person. You're an alert person. You're somebody that places people above yourself. So I think like Sifu Kuttel, I also had no idea. I mean, I thought being a Sifu was like, that was for other people, right? Like I'll just be lucky if I can get this information. But from my experience over time, the best leaders are the people that don't look for it. You know, leaders are people who are in the service of other people and happen to fall upon circumstances that their ability and situation forces them or puts them in a position to be a leader. The people that actually want to be a leader, that are there for the glory, they're usually not the best. We call them managers. There's managers and there's leaders, right?
Terminology is key. I was thinking about the whole story of pouring tea, and I was imagining that like how would you sell that as a self-defense method, right? That would be situational awareness right there, you know,
yeah.
like
knowing
when, you know, knowing what, not overlooking those key details.
Definitely. And, you know, again, we're talking about our different styles. I teach Hongga, Sifu Kuttel, teach Choy Lei Fut. Maybe you can, to the uninitiated, because Choy Lei Fut is a very popular style, very well-respected style. But for the uninitiated, can you kind of convey a little bit about, you know, the origins of Choy Lei Fut and just a little bit about the system so people can be educated about it? Yeah,
so the art itself was born out of rebellion. Like it's a Boxer rebellion time art, martial art. And even prior to that, the rebellion against the Manchu and all of that. So it was definitely a fighting art. But I think one of the things that makes it very, very unique and also very popular is that it is a forms-based system. So like you see in Japanese martial arts, there's katas, or just, a series of choreographed movements. And with Choy Lei Fut, they have quite an array. I mean, just between hand forms, weapon forms. I know in the system that I study, we have 53 different weapons. Wow. And there's animal styles, there's the drunken style, Buddha palm style. These are all in single forms. And I think that's one of the things that makes it really appealing, especially for me. That's one of the reasons why I've been with it this long, is that, there's always something kind of new and fun to learn. But the art is actually quite similar to Hung Ga in the sense of low, wide stances, a lot of big motions. But I would say what Choy Lei Fut is really known for is for its big sweeping strikes and big circular motions. This doesn't mean that there's no straight line attacks. It's just that Choy Lei Fut really has a very, very big swinging motion, and that gained a lot of popularity for it, especially when you compare it to like arts that are very like straight line, like Wing Chun. One of the things too, if you do know about Hung Ga and you want to kind of picture what Choy Lei Fut is and a little bit different, is if you take like a simple movement itself to like a back fist movement, Hung Ga will stop with they'll have the hand finish the position right here. Choy Lei Fut will have the more of an emphasis on following through, and then a return upward so it'll kind of bounce back up. And again, giving that more big, wide, circular appearance. And it is a Southern Kung Fu style. It's about 200 years old, just over 200 years old. And it did have foundations in the Shaolin system. That's probably why you have so many different forms and things. But it is an art that is very dynamic in that sense. So that is pretty much how I'm going to sum up Choy Lei Fut.
And the name, its namesake actually comes from, if I'm correct, three prominent precursor styles, right? Maybe you could elaborate a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the name of the art is actually, so you have Choy, like Choy Ga Kung Fu, Li, like Li Ga Kung Fu, or you have Choy family style or Li family style. And then Fut means Buddha. So this was either in relation to Fut Ga, which is Buddha palm style, or also could be more of a paying homage to the Shaolin Temple because of, its Buddhist ties. So rather than the founder Chen Hong putting his name on the art, he paid respect to the three arts that he had learned. And when he created his own art, he wanted to still show that lineage and to pay respect to the roots. So that's why the name is there. And then for Mandarin speakers, it's Cai Li Fo. So sometimes you may hear it like that. Sometimes you may hear it Choy Lei Fut. But it's a Southern Chinese art, so you usually typically hear the Cantonese term, which is Choy Lei Fut.
That's great. And before I forget, I got to ask this one question because I always want to ask. Oh, sorry, Patrick. I think I jumped in. No, because I mean, in Kung Fu, right? Everybody has their journey. I'm always curious when you have a Kung Fu person, and I got to ask you, what is one of the craziest high-level Kung Fu things that you ever saw or witnessed? Because it's always fascinating to see what people saw in their journey and to hear that anecdote. So I'm very curious if you have any tale to regale us about what is up there that you've seen.
I guess what I would say is really an application. So, a lot of times when we look at forms, we typically look at a form as, it's just a way of practicing or a way of staying fit, and it's not exactly like how you would fight. Or when you do see applications, demonstrated, it's the most appealing version, matching like Hong Kong films, where it's or like Shapes style choreography where it almost hits like a beat. Each motion hits that certain beat, and everybody's matching it, and like not even having to look, and they're blocking. So we have these kind of expectations for it, and then after a while, a lot of people just think, well, that's not going to be realistic. That's never going to happen like that. And I would say probably the most high level things that I've seen have been when people have done things almost exactly true to the form, and sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident. And it, you know, when you see like that perfect technique, you see that perfect punch with all of the things that we talk about, all the principles, waist rotation, digging in on the stance, making sure that it, you know, you snap the punch, you know, you tighten up right before striking and all of this, and you see that perfect technique as if it were in a form. I think that's definitely some of the most high level stuff. Sometimes I've been on the receiving end. Sometimes I've been the one, I've been lucky enough to deliver a couple of those, and I've been lucky enough to witness that as well. So I guess I would say that, I mean, off the top of my head. So.
Sure. And I don't know about your experience. The thing for me is sometimes when the application comes out, right, we always want it to be that cool. And like, I want it to be the tiger claw. But sometimes in practical application, it'll be the most dainty, sissy looking move will be what works. And it's like, instead of being happy that I did this move, I'm like, why didn't I do that really ultra masculine, like, you know, Shaw Brothers move? Why did I do like something that, you know what I mean? It's you don't get to choose, right? It just comes out, and here I am beating myself up when I pulled off the move, but it just wasn't as cool as I hoped, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely it's funny how that works out. I mean, I think that's one thing. That's one thing too. I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially with writing the book about kicking and having conversations with people about traditional martial arts and modern day, you know, against when they try to compare it with modern martial arts. And it comes down to context of the situation. So not every situation warrants you to do a particular, like, you know, you don't have to pluck the eye out or whatever, you know, like if the situation requires you to just punch them, then you just punch them. But, you know, there are going to be contexts where these moments happen. And yeah, sometimes it's not the coolest, you know,
right?
moments, but it definitely happens. And you know what, I do have to say too, that does remind me, just seeing moments of application that have not been in a fighting context too have been very interesting to see. And, you know, a lot of people can relate. You know, I think one of the earliest things that people can relate to for that is the whole, you know, they have the term kung fu reflexes, right? When they drop something and hey, whoa, I caught it, you know, that is application. That's your training paying off. This is applied martial arts. Even though you didn't have to like punch the jar as it's falling off the shelf, you caught it, you picked the right move for the context. Yeah. But you know, it's things like that I love to see in everyday life.
Oh, definitely. And Patrick, earlier, I feel like I kind of cut you off. There was something that, if you recall, you were going
I don't even remember. I'm just so tickled at the vision of like catching that jar of jelly being kung fu. I mean, yeah. It's just what a perfect soundbite. Thank you.
No, definitely. And the funny thing is, anybody watching has no idea. You spent 20 years preparing to catch that jar, right? you earned that moment. You know, you earned that moment.
That was some artisanal Swiss jelly that was saved right then.
Yeah, it's saved. It's preserved.
Preserved. Oh man, we're on fire. That's the comic in the comic fu show right now.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I had heard one time that for certain of the Hakka systems, like one of the big coordinations is being able to make a circle shape with one hand and being able to draw a square with the same, you know? So I was okay, that's cool, good to know. And then there was a Bak Mei Sifu that my father knew in Hawaii. And this guy was super secretive with his Kung Fu. I always wanted, he was a bartender at my dad's bar. And I would go there. And every time my dad would say, oh, he knows Kung Fu. And I try to talk to him about it. And he wouldn't say anything. And of course, I'm trying to watch, right? If you're a Kung Fu person, you're trying to look for the telltale sign. Is he going to drop it? Is he going to grab it or whatever? And this dude was hiding his Kung Fu like crazy. I mean, he was hiding it. I could tell it. So it's about 4 or 5 years of me. Every time I visit my dad in Hawaii, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to the beach? No, I want to go to the bar. So finally, I guess he gave in. So we took him out to eat and we were talking. And he's telling this story. And this was so cool. As he's talking, he has his coffee with cream in it. And he's talking and he's gesticulating with his hand, talking about, oh, I went down the street, this is this. And his left hand is stirring the coffee in this perfectly smooth circle as his head. I go, oh, there it is. that's the moment, you know, and that's like the uber kung fu nerd in me, right? You have those moments you go, oh, he's got it, right? It's who you are, it's what you do, you know, and that's what makes it so exciting, you know. So definitely. So I'm going to be working on that myself next time I'm on stream, if I can be stirring this and moving.
Trying that too.
Exactly. Well,
right, stirring your coffee while making sure the right banner shows up on the screen, you know.
Exactly. Oh, well, excellent. It's such a pleasure to finally, you know, get to talk with you in person and you know become acquainted. This is really nice.
Likewise, yeah, absolutely.
So when can we expect that? Do you have any? How many years will it take for you to get that kicking technique book done?
I'm hoping this year. It's been a lot more work than I expected, so it is going to take some time. And as far as illustration phase, like I said, and I have kind of 3 main types of illustrations: the how to do it, or I guess maybe 4: how to do it, the traditional application, the self-defense application, and the combat sports application. So I'm only still working on just the first 2 parts of it. So the other ones should be easier and faster, but it's taken months now. So I'm hoping, like I said, this year, and I'll be releasing it on social media and doing all of that stuff. I kind of jumped in and did like giveaways and stuff when the monkey book came out and rode that crazy wave. So I'll be planning out a couple more things to do when that time comes. So
keep us posted, because I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're among the circle of comics fu sequential artists.
Yes,
you know?
Yes, definitely.
It's just maybe it's more of a choose your own adventure style book.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's just a real pleasure. And people can find you on your website where you have your online program. So make sure to check that out.
Kuttel.com. I have links to my YouTube channels. I actually teach, so my Choy Li Fat, or my Kung Fu channel, and I also teach Tai Chi as well. So I have links to those, and then I have an online program where I teach Kung Fu. I have an online program teaching Tai Chi, and then also just weapon programs, so people can learn some weapons basics and a short routine to work on it, and things like rope dart or meteor hammer, double daggers, and right now fan is what I have up, and I'll be releasing more of those coming out. So you can always check back, just sifukuttel.com. Check it out. If you have any questions, you can contact me on any social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or by email, sifukuttel@gmail.com. So feel free, contact me, and we can talk Kung Fu.
Sounds like a plan. Well, thank you so much, and please let us know when that book's finished, and you know we'll get you back on here, and we'll keep talking more.
That'd be awesome. All
right. Well.
Yeah, this was great.
That's excellent.
I think, So as we normally do things, right? We kind of close the stream out with a couple of our closing credit videos, and then we'll be back because we have another guest showing up in about an hour, right? Marlon McKenney, he's the creative director for Conscious Culture Publishing. So we're gonna take a deep dive into Black History Month. It's gonna be awesome. Not that you have to stay for the stream once we close things down. I'll wish you a great evening. It's probably evening there.
Oh yeah. It's about 9:30 now. 9:30.
Okay, so a little past evening. So have a great night. Thanks again. It's so good to connect.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a very good time. Yeah, I hope to do it again.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Plugo, author, illustrator, comic creator, and the art director for Kung Fu magazine for more than 20 years. But I'm here to talk to you about a project that's really special to me. It's the middle grade graphic novel, A Tiger's Tale. Imagine the story of tigers and dragons and martial artists and monsters. So when I launched the campaign for A Tiger's Tale Volume 1, I did not know what to expect, but it succeeded thanks to a group of passionate backers. It was also awarded the Make More Comics art grant that year and was later featured as part of an art gallery exhibit. And that's why I'm coming to Kickstarter, to cover production fees, printing, copy editing, things like that. Books completed, with the exception of a few pages I've set aside for color over the course of the campaign. This turned out to be a popular feature of Volume 1's campaign, so I thought I'd bring it back for Volume 2. I think it's going to be great fun for everyone. Hope you'll support the campaign. I'm very excited about it. Thanks for stopping by.
As a kid, I loved Kung Fu movies. So I went to Chinatown, trained with a wise teacher, and became a Kung Fu master. Sounds simple, right? Not really. My journey, like the study of Kung Fu, was as arduous as it was rewarding, filled with as many secrets as revelations and as much heartache as triumph. It's a defining moment in my life, and while I began studying Kung Fu to learn how to fight, what I discovered was a way to live. Martial arts never came easy to me. I was far from talented and even farther from being the chosen one. It was only through years of tenacious perseverance that I was able to make steady progress. And so, I was surprised when my master told me that I should teach Kung Fu and share the art outside of Chinatown. I did just that and taught Kung Fu to my own students for 20 years. I always wanted to do more to share the art of Kung Fu with others, but was limited by only being able to teach those within my immediate area. What about the rest of the world? Then one day, I had one of the deepest insights about Kung Fu. I realized that the punches, kicks, throws, and myriad of martial maneuvers are merely the delivery system for the true essence of Kung Fu, the philosophy and way of life. Having worked for years as a professional artist and storyteller in film, animation, video games, and comic books, I realized that I could draw upon this unique skill set to share my passion for Kung Fu with the greater world. And so I created Shadow Ghost, a Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master. The first issue is created entirely by myself, from story and art to colors and lettering. Every panel is filled with unprecedented accuracy in its depiction of Kung Fu by a comic book creator who knows from first-hand experience what it means to be a Kung Fu master. Shadow Ghost is a martial arts coming-of-age story about a young man whose search for the truth about a legendary hero leads him to study Kung Fu, and through a twist of fate, becomes part of the legend himself. For the first time in comic book history, you can immerse yourself further in each issue with Kung Fu skills technology, powered by Tiger Crane Kung Fu. Scan the QR code at the back of the comic and follow an exclusive link to an online instructional video where I teach you Kung Fu techniques featured in this series. With Kung Fu skills technology, you can do more than just read about the Shadow Ghost saga. You can become a part of it. The first issue is completely finished and ready for print. All that's needed is for you to make a pledge of support so that we can fund the printing of the first issue. Together, we can share the wisdom of Kung Fu with the greater world. Shadow Ghost is the story of Kung Fu. It's about the people, the art, the culture, and the philosophy. It's my story and the story of those that I've learned from, taught, fought, and loved. Join me and become part of the vibrant legacy in a place and time where we might not be the chosen one, but where we can make a choice to be part of something bigger and greater than just ourselves. I'm Sifu Curtis Fujita, and this is Shadow Ghost, the Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master.